Good.
Okay. Call to order. Good morning, everyone. I will now call this hearing of the Assessment Review Board to order for July 15, 2026 at 9 a.m. I would like to begin by introducing myself. My name is Taylor Cameron, member of the Assessment Review Board, and I will be serving as a presiding officer for today's local Assessment Review Board hearing. I'll also be serving on the panel today are
Renee Clements, member of the ARB.
Hank Lee Frank, a member as well.
The matter before the board today is a merit hearing regarding for the following roll numbers and property addresses. Number one, roll number 8022300, located at 2 Sunvale Place Northeast, owned by Wayne and Lynn Bullock. Number two, roll number 8021100, located at 3 Sunvale Place Northeast, owned by Sunvale Place Villas Ltd. Number three, roll number 8021200, located at 5 Sunvale Place Northeast, owned by Sunvale Place Villas Ltd. Number four, roll number 8022500, located at 6 Sunvale Place Northeast, owned by William and Janice Carson. Number five, roll number 8021300, located at 7 Sunvale Place Northeast, owned by Sunvale Place Villas Ltd. Number six, roll number 8021400, located at 9 Sunvale Place Northeast, owned by Sunvale Place Villas Ltd. Number seven, roll number 8021500, located at 11 Sunvale Place Northeast, owned by Sunvale Place Villas Ltd. Number eight, roll number 8021600, located at 13 Sunvale Place Northeast, owned by Robert and Barbara Warner. Number nine, roll number 8022900, located at 14 Sunvale Place Northeast, owned by Beverly Brecka. Number 10, roll number 8023000, located at 16 Sunvale Place Northeast, owned by Ken and Carrie Neufeld. Number 11, roll number 8023100, located at 18 Sunvale Place Northeast, owned by Hamish and Jesse McKenzie. Number 12, roll number 8021900, located at 19 Sunvale Place Northeast, owned by Brent Thompson. Number 13, roll number 8022000, located at 21 Sunvale Place Northeast, owned by Bruce Cameron Grant. Number 14, roll number 8022100, located at 23 Sunvale Place Northeast, owned by Fritz Perel. These property owners will be represented by the authorized agent, Paul Blumfield. This hearing will consider the complainants filed, the evidence presented by both parties respecting the assessed value. I'll now ask those present to introduce themselves for the record. We'll begin with board administration, followed by the complainant, then the respondent. Please state your name and who you represent.
Good morning. My name is Jody Hipkin, municipal clerk, co-clerking with my colleague,
Alicia Pollitt.
My name is Paul Blomfield, and I'm representing all of these residents.
Good morning. My name is Stuart Dalrymple. I'm the appointed assessor for the town of High River. Thank you.
Preliminary matters hearing procedure. Before we...
One moment. We just need
sorry.
Hi, Brandon Garner. I'm an assessor with the town of High River.
Apologies. Before we begin, I will briefly outline the hearing process. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. The board will consider the evidence and submission presented by both parties. All parties are expected to provide truthful and accurate information, as the board will rely on this in making its decision. All questions are to be directed through the presiding officer. The complainant will present their case first, followed by the respondent. The complainant will then be able to present their rebuttal. Each party will have an opportunity to ask questions of the other, and the board may ask questions at any time. We will conclude with closing submission. Any evidence not disclosed in accordance with the required timelines may not be accepted by the board. Before we proceed, are there any preliminary matters from either party?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Thank you for hearing our appeal today. We appreciate that the town has reviewed our complaint and reduced the assessments after correcting various errors. Those corrections were appropriate. However, we respectfully submit that the amended assessments still exceed market value as of July 1st, 2025. Our position is fairly simple. The actual sales within Sunvale Place support values of approximately $380,000, not the town's amended value assessments of approximately $422 to $427. Do you want me to continue or just start with that introduction?
Are you jumping in through your complainant disclosure?
I'm sorry?
Are you jumping in through your complainant disclosure or?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I was.
Yeah, sorry. This was just preliminary, so we'll go on to that afterwards, but.
Just the question would be, do you have any preliminary concerns such as the individual sitting on the board or any other issues regarding timing of disclosure or anything that was submitted before the hearing this
No.
morning? No?
No.
Okay. Then we can just move to the respondent to all.
No concerns here at all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I will now invite the complainant to present their case.
Okay.
Proceed with
I'm
the-
sorry.
No worries.
New to this. So yeah, thanks for hearing our appeal today. We appreciate all the work that Stuart has done on behalf of the town and reviewed our complaint and reduced the assessments after correcting various errors. And as I said, those corrections were appropriate, but we respectfully submit that the amended assessments still exceed market value as of July 1st, 2025. I said our position's pretty simple. The actual sales within Sunvale Place support values of approximately $380,000, not the town's amended assessments of approximately $422,000 to $427,000. Do you want me to continue?
This is part of your complainant at the start, yes.
So the strongest evidence of market value is the only Sunvale Place sale occurring within the 12 months before the valuation date, and that's Unit 19 Sunvale Place, which sold on the 18th of July 2024 for a sale price of $379,000. Yet the town's amended assessments are between $421,600 and $426,800, approximately 11 to 13% higher than this actual sale. Even after applying the town's own time adjustment, the indicated value is only $406,400, which is still $15,000 to $20,000 below the amended assessments. The remaining Sunvale Place sales from 2022 and 2023 and can be found on page 50. The town increased these sales by 27% to 47%, producing adjusted values ranging from $421,700 to $498,100. However, no Sunvale Place villa has ever sold at those prices. The actual market tells a different story. For example, 18 Sunvale Place sold in August of 2022 for $340,000, and 19 Sunvale Place sold in July 2024 for $379,000. That represents actual appreciation of approximately 11%, while the town's adjustment curve assumes approximately 37% appreciation over the same period. The actual sales simply do not support the adjustments applied by the model. Although outside the valuation date, the sale of Unit 10, Sunvale Place Northeast, provides useful confirmation. It sold in 2026 for $385,000, despite the town describing the market as continuing to rise. If these homes sold for approximately $385,000 in a stronger market, it's difficult to conclude that they're worth over $421,000. as of July 1st, 2025. This appeal is not now about criticising the town's mass appraisal methodology, and the question before the board is whether the resulting assessment reflects actual market value. The best evidence available is the actual sales within Sunvale Place, and those sales consistently support values near 380,000, not the amended assessments proposed by the town. For those reasons, we respectfully request that the board reduce the assessments to approximately 380,000 or to another amount the board determines is supported by market evidence. Thank you for your consideration.
Respondent, you may now ask any relevant questions of the complainant. Please direct your questions to the presiding officer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Paul, for your information and in the complaint. I was just curious, with this regarding the list of sales, I don't have the proper page number, but just the listing of all the sales on the MLS. I believe they're from 2022 to 2025. Are all those sales, are they all the condo sales? They include bungalows, 2 stories, apartments, and like every condo group. Is it a strata? Is it grouped by the property type, or is it just all of the sales?
So the page number that I referred to listed sales on the MLS that were from 3 communities that are all adjacent to one another. One is Sunvale Place, the one that we're addressing today. The other one is Sunrise Place.
May I interrupt? Could you please flip to page 50, I believe it was, for what he's reviewing? So
we're just having some technical difficulties because we do have one whole PDF of the entire agenda rather than how it's broken up, and I'm just trying to locate that file so that I can scroll to the appropriate page number rather than having to open the various attachments.
If
Because you're
necessary,
referring to the list of direct comparisons.
I can give you each a copy of that if you would like. Like I have a...
Should be able to get it here shortly. If you want to just bear us a minute, please.
Yeah.
Just hold one moment. Sorry.
There's a screen right here too. It's better, easy to see if you want.
Yeah, I definitely can't see that one.
But if you look at this one, yeah.
This is actually page 46. That's what I'm referring to. No, it's actually from the report, the response that the town gave me.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
The page numbers will differ just because everything's been compiled into one agenda.
Yeah, I wondered why you were saying like 100 pages, like there's 78 pages. It's
Yeah.
And that's going to be the
Sorry.
figure it out.
My next page is 208 then.
To save this for, we can, if you have trouble finding it, that's okay. Like, I can ask another question.
I think we're just going to pull the page right now, and we'll get you to re-ask your questions so that we can have it properly explained for everybody.
Sounds good. Thank
and
you.
on the
Mr.
record.
Chairman.
Can you just confirm that this is the right page then? No, it's not showing very clearly.
Yep.
It is?
Okay. Thank you so much for your patience.
To the respondent, could you please re-explain your question?
Yeah, it wasn't this page. It was just the listing. I think it's the pages before this one. It's all the MLS listing. It's the one with blue and white stripes.
That's just after.
Oh, and let me just after. Sorry, Jody.
This is the page I should have been referring to, though. So when I said page 50, it was actually page 46.
So these ones here, I think there's 3 or 4 pages. One. So just to rephrase it, just to ask this question again. Through the chair, Paul, this is a exclusive, like it's an all-inclusive listing of all the condo sales. Is that correct?
All the ones that I was able to obtain from a realtor on the MLS, yes.
And through the chair, Paul, would you say that to use sales in 2022 without making an adjustment for time during that time wouldn't really be fair? Wouldn't be a good representation of value as of July 1, 2025, especially due to the market changes that have occurred since that time?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. There is, in regards to the board, do we have any questions?
I'm just wondering, the request is to reduce all 14 properties to 380,000, each one of them individually?
That is correct. Do you want me to explain why? Certainly. So Sunvale Place consists of 23 homes. It's a very small community, one street, with houses on the north side and on the south side. They're identical homes, and it's essentially a retirement community. These are single-level villas, so they're very unique, with a single garage. People that are purchasing these homes are a unique purchaser. They're not your mass, individual that would be looking at all sorts of homes. And as such, they were all built at the same time, and they're all with the same types of finishings inside, so they're virtually identical to one another, albeit there'll be homes that sit on the end of each of those rows of houses. Because it's such a small community, everybody knows each other by first name, so every time a sale takes place, they all know what the values are being sold for. I sit on the condominium board for that community because I represent an owner that still owns 5 of the properties and rents them out. Every time we get an increase in property taxes, like we have to go back to the tenants and increase their rent. When the property values went up considerably in 2025, from 2024's assessment, many of the owners were a little frustrated and came and met with the town. But they were persuaded not to do anything about it because I think they'd been undervalued previously. However, they thought that things would rectify themselves the second year round. That didn't happen. And so many of them got together and said that we want to register a complaint. They approached me as on the board and asked me if I was intending to register a complaint, and I said, well, yes, I'm planning to as well. And because they're retired folk, they really didn't want to come and sit in this forum because it's not something that they're comfortable with, and so they asked me if I would represent them. So I agreed to do that, and I've never done this before either, but I felt like the values were significantly higher than what they should be, so I felt it was appropriate to actually come and represent them. So.
Thank you for that, and through the chair. So to confirm, there was no review between 2024 and 2025, as your assessment appears that there was $125,000-ish increase between those 2 years?
No, there was no, I don't think people were familiar with the complaint process. I know that some people came and spoke with, I'm not sure who it was at the town, but they came and spoke with somebody at the town and were dissuaded from registering a complaint at that time. But during that year, they all apprised themselves of what the process is. And so when the next assessments came out at even more significant values, they felt it necessary to actually to do something about it.
Through the chair, are they all the same square footage?
They're virtually identical square footage, yes.
I have a couple of questions for the complainant here. Can we scroll up to the tax assessment roll number of 2024 to 2025. It should be, I think, around the page 40. Yeah, we're just coming up to here. Just for a reflection of the assessment date of March 8th, the one we're looking at here at 5 condominium assessment for 8021400, we see the assessment amount of 303,200. Could you scroll down to the 2025, I believe it shows, the reflection. Oh, sorry, it's up. Apologies. Yeah, it's the more recent year. We were just coming up. This is a perfect example here. So we were checking from the previous note was March 4th of 2024 at a 303,200 was the assessed value, and we've now increased to March 13th of 2025 to 425,300. It's approximately about a 40% increase in valuation. Now we're referring to our May of 2025. I guess my question here is, you're coming back requesting an adjustment for the 2 years, this year and the preceding year, to reflect your new valuation, or are you coming back with an issue of this year's valuation?
Well, obviously, I can only come back and ask for an adjustment to this year's valuation because that year has passed. What I am saying is that residents felt like that those values in 2024, I guess 25, were inaccurate too, but were dissuaded from actually registering a complaint at that time. And so they've apprised themselves of doing that this year, and that's why we're here. Now, we recognize that if you go back, 2024 tax assessments were probably lower than they should have been, and nobody complains when they're lower, you know. But the big jump was a big jump. No houses have ever sold at those values at the 2025 assessment values. None of them have ever sold at that value. And they certainly haven't sold at the 2026 value that they came back at. And they still haven't sold at the values that have been revised, ever.
Okay. If we're able to pull up the recent sale, I believe it was October of 2025 for the direct property, I think was 7 Sunvale.
It was number 10.
Oh, 10, apologies.
In May of, well, let's just see here.
Yeah, down below, 10 Sunvale Place Northeast on, appears to have been 161. Thank you, Renee. Okay. So, simplify question here to the complainant. You're coming up with the assessed value of the 360 based off of your weighted direct comparison from 4 years prior. Or are you basing it off of this direct sale to come up with your valuation?
Well, we're basing it off that direct sale, but post the valuation date, there's been another home that has sold for $385,000. So a very similar value, but that sale happened in last month. So, you know, even over that almost a year period, 11 months, the value's only gone up $5,000 from the sale that happened previously. So we sort of have some evidence that they're just not selling for anywhere near what the town is valuing them at. So even though their model is meeting all the legislative requirements, you know, my understanding is that they're supposed to be providing an actual market value, and we're just not seeing that in this small community.
Thank you. I will now invite the respondent to present their case. You may proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks everyone for the opportunity to respond to the complaint regarding the 14 properties that were listed at the beginning of this hearing in Sunvale Place. So if we can scroll through my document then, that'd be great. Thanks, Jody. So I'll just go past the first few pages here. And I didn't include, so I've included, just for information, we've included the Assessment Review Board notice of hearing just for one property, because there are 14. We didn't think it was appropriate to, it was just information. The hearing dates and information, the processes are all consistent with all of them. So that's why only 3 Sunvale places here. And same with the complaint on page 6. It's just matching that the complaint hearing information. Let's turn to page 8. Thank you, Jody. So this is just a relative location of Sunvale Place within High River. It's on the northeast corner. They're highlighted on the top in a blue rectangle. And then zooming in at the bottom of the page, it shows that Sunvale Place relative to, and I didn't highlight them here, but if you're right where the arrow goes through, pointing to the blue rectangle, that's Sunvale Crescent. Right there, and where the blue rectangle is, right south of that is, Monday House. There's Monday House, but then if you go down to the bottom there, just north of the school is a square, and that's Sunrise Place. So these, I should have listed it on here, but so Sunvale Place is highlighted in blue, Sunvale Crescent is immediately west of Sunvale Place, and Sunrise Place is immediately south. So the condos we're talking about today, they're all very similar in that development. On page 9, it shows all the units within Sunvale Place. The ones highlighted in black are the ones that are under complaint today, just for information. On page 10, there's 2 condo plans relative to Sunvale Place. The one at the top is Plan 1610383. That's for all the northern condos. And Plan 1610710. Represents all the the condos on the southern part of Sunvale Place. It's not very clear here, but on those condo plans, there's a little schedule there. It's on the top one, it's on the lower right, and for Sunvale, for the lower one, it's on the top. So just for information, condos are unique, and some assessors assess them in different ways. We've learned that the most appropriate size measure to use for condos is the size on the condo schedule. Because condos are valued from paint to paint. So the area shown on the schedule here is exactly that. So just to speak to the size of the properties, I guess I'll get into that later, but that gets to make reference to the size on the schedule on the condo plans. So on page 11, this lists all the condos identified. This is all 23 of them, and the ones I haven't highlighted the ones in the that are appealed. My apologies for that. The ones that are highlighted in dark, so 2, 6, 14, 16, 18 are the north side, and the remaining ones are on the south side. I just show this because this is the assessment for all those condos at the time for the 2025 assessment. So if I just pick number 3, because we've been kind of referring to that one, so it just shows the roll number, the legal, the owner, the size, 124.9 square meters, that's from the condo plan. That's converting that to square footage, that's 1,344 square feet. On the original assessment, highlighted in blue at the bottom, this represents the suite size, the garage size, and the total size of the units for the 2025 assessment. So this represents those sizes from which the assessments were calculated or determined for the original 2025 assessment. And then at the bottom it says original 2025 assessment. These are the respective assessments of those properties. And then at the lower end there, where it says dollar per square foot, that represents the value per square foot of all these units. So when I started talking to the property owners this year, when we talked about size, a lot of them were looking at me saying, but they're all the same. So, well, just to back up a little bit, we can't. These condos have been assessed this way since they were first valued. I think their original age is 2016 is when it was built. So these sizes have been in place since then. So the difficulty with these condos is, if you go back to page 10, on the footprint of these condos, it doesn't show where the suite is, and it doesn't show where the garage is. So the previously, one of the ways that condos were done, they were done like a house. So then they draw a diagram, they draw an apex diagram for the suite and an apex diagram for the garage. And not much attention is given to, well, so the totals are right, but because a diagram was unique for each one, they're all a little different. So that's when I started talking to the property owners. They were saying, but they're all the same. And I said, well, that's not what I have. So after the inquiry period, the property owners in Sunvale Place kind of let me into about 5 of the units. We measured the garages to confirm that they were consistent, the same size, and they were. So we made the corresponding adjustment. So, and I'll get into that later. So pages, the next are some pictures of one of the condos, just for information. The first one is just a picture of the condos in Sunvale Place, just a generic picture, if you will. And then on page 13, we've got pictures of 17 Sunvale Place. This is one that was sold. So the top one is just a picture of the front of the condo. It's a suite with a single car garage. The bottom is a photo from the kitchen looking toward the front door. On page 14 is from the front door looking toward the kitchen. And then the bottom of the page is just a closer view of that. Page 15 shows a picture of the kitchen. I believe on the back side of the kitchen there's a small computer area. And then we've got the master suite on the top of page 16, and the master bathroom at the bottom of page 16. And there are 2 bathrooms, so they're on 17, that is the second bathroom. And in the bottom of this page, they use the second bedroom as a entertainment room. There's a laundry room with stacked laundry, and then the bottom of page 18 shows the back of the unit. And then on page 19 shows a single car garage. All the garages, we've confirmed the same size, and they're all insulated and drywalled. And heated too, there's heat in the floor. So page 20 just kind of goes through what the information we gathered to confirm the size. So what generally happens when condos are built is that the developer comes up with a size and starts selling the units, and then when about 60% of the units are sold, then it's condominiumized, so it goes to get stratified, and then the sizes come back from registries with a different size, because the developer sold them as outside dimensions, but then when it comes back from the condo, the sizes change. That's why we use that schedule on the condo plan. So sometimes on the like in this one here, it says Sunvale Place said it was 1,442 square feet. But when they're condominiumized, they're 1,344. So again, that can be confusing as well. If you look at the listings of all these condos, they're all different, right? But for assessment, because we do mass appraisal, we're required to make sure that if the units are consistently the same size, then we need to show that. That's why when the property owners said, well, the garages were all the same, we couldn't just say, well, okay, we had to check that. So upon checking that, So at the bottom, we said the condo plan stated the overall size is 124.9 square meters, which is 1344 square feet. The garages are 282.75, rounded to 282. So then all the suite sizes would change to 1,062, and all the garages would change to 282 for a total of 1344. So with the help of the property owners and their patience and letting us into their properties and check this out, we're able to get this changed. So that was an important step in addressing the concerns of the property owners to resolve their issues. There's no point, because it's mass appraisal and they're all condos in that unit, let's just get at her and get this condo sorted out. So as a result, on page 21, the top portion of this table down to the red rectangle is the same, because you'll see the original assessments highlighted in blue. And then at the bottom of the page, it says amended and proposed 2025 assessment. Now these are the corrected sizes of all of those respective condo units, with the suites at 1,062 and the garages at 282, all at 1344, exactly how this should be. So we appreciate the patience of the property owners and working toward getting that sorted out. So for the purposes of this hearing, we are proposing for the properties that are appealed, for the 14 properties appealed, to amend the assessments. They're all at 421,800, except for number 2, because it's an outside unit, so it's a little different. But so 421,000 for all the properties appealed. That would be the proposed amended assessment of the units. So that would be for units 2. I'll just circle 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, 11, 13, 14, 11, 13, 14, 16, 18, 19, 16, 18, 19, 21, and 23. So for those units, this is the proposed, highlighted in yellow is the proposed amended assessment. And I'll follow this with how we calculate that amended assessment. So just for reference then, on page 21, that reflects. So you can see, I can understand and see why the property owners were concerned. I wasn't aware that the units, there was an issue with the units at the time. I haven't been until the property owners raised the concerns. So immediately we set down to correcting the sizes. So I understand their concerns because it was quite a range. In the blue, we've got 452, 442, 447, 449. They're all inconsistent, so we've addressed that. All right, so if we can turn to page 22, we're just going to refer to some legislation regarding assessment. We're very heavily regulated in the process of assessment. Legislation contend to monitor on the process of assessment is in the Municipal Government Act in matters related to assessment and taxation. On page 23, just to point out the second section there, assessments for properties must reflect the physical condition of a property as of December 31st in the year prior to the tax year. So in this case, it was in 2025. I don't know if I highlighted it here. Oh yeah. Valuation standard is market value for properties. So the amount that a property might be expected to realize if it's sold on the open market by a willing seller to a willing buyer. In the bottom of page 23, an assessment of property must be based on market value, must be prepared using mass appraisal, must be an estimate of the value of the fee simple estate of the property, and must reflect typical market conditions for properties similar to that property. So in this case, condo properties, specifically properties within Sunvale Place. The valuation date for assessment is for the regulations is July 1, 2025. So for the purposes of assessment, if a property sells July 2nd, We can't include that in our valuation model. That's to be included in next year's. So any reference to sales information after July 1, 2025, we can't look at that. It's interesting to look at for reference, but for the purposes of assessment and evaluation standard, it goes from July the 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2025. That's our sales period that we review. We have strict quality standards we have to adhere to, which are shown here on page 24. So for each group of properties, the quality standard must be between 95 and 105%. That's our quality standard. And if we don't meet that quality standard when we submit the assessments to ASSET or to the provincial government, the assessment won't be approved. And for that quality standard, the town of High River every municipality goes through 2 stages of audit and must pass this. So we always, because this quality standard is specific to assessment, realtors or appraisers who are appraising a property on a single property basis, picking one property and using 3 select properties close to that property, they're not required to make sure that their assessments are consistent throughout the town in any way. They're not bound by any of those rules. So for mass appraisal, for the process of mass appraisal which we are required to follow, we are required to make sure that we develop value models specific to each group, but then we're also required to make sure that we're applying the same rules of mass appraisal to other properties. We don't make sure that they're the same across the town, but the process of mass appraisal is applied consistently. And the time adjustment is part of that, and I'll get into that shortly. So I think that's all the references I had to make with legislation. On page 27, this makes reference to the fact that we required to assess all of the properties in town or review them every 5 years. We have a reinspection cycle. We do our best to make sure we stay on top of property data for those properties, in addition to correcting data as it comes along as well. And then just assumptions and limiting conditions referred to on the bottom of page 27. For approaches to valuation for properties in High River, for residential, the appropriate valuation standard is a direct comparison approach. A lot of people call it the sales comparison approach. So for the valuation of residential properties, the direct comparison approach is used. This method of valuation determines a property's value by comparing it to similar properties recently sold in the same geographic area. It's similar properties, but not exact copies. Because a property doesn't sell for 1,060 square feet, it doesn't mean we don't have any comparables. On page 29, just showed the difference between single property appraisal and mass appraisal. So single property appraisal, of course, is the valuation of one property for various reasons. The valuation date determined by the appraiser. 3 to 5 comparable sales are reviewed as close in location, style, quality, and construction to the subject to arrive at an estimated value. For mass appraisal, the process involves the valuation of an entire group of properties for taxation purposes. The valuation date is one date, July 1, and December 31st in a year before the tax year, so this year 2025. A valuation is developed for each property group within similar style and quality of construction. An equitable and consistent estimate of value is derived for each property group. This is important because this is going to come up later. The valuation model is statistically tested for accuracy. So that determines how close that model is for the group compared to the market. And after meeting the required provincial quality standard testing, it's submitted to ASSET. After which, being approved, going through 2 stages of audit, we can be used for assessment and taxation purposes. So on page 30, we have kind of an explanation of the mass appraisal process. So this group of properties involves all the condo sales. There's 1,324 condo properties in town. For all the condos, every single condo. Includes the list the complainant had, in addition to the ones that don't sell on the MLS. of that 1,324 condos, 381 were sales. So I've just grouped all the condo properties on here just to show the process of mass appraisal. So the statistical test for assessment is the assessment divided by the selling price for each group. So of the 1,324 condo properties that existed as of December 31st, 2025, there were 381 sales from July 1, 22 to June 30th, 25. These sales were verified as suitable indicators of value, with respective valuation models being developed and statistically tested with the overall results as follows. So each of the red bars shown on the graph at the bottom represents a respective assessment divided by a selling price of each of those sales, with the overall assessment to sales ratio in the case where indicated by the yellow arrow is 98.1%. So it shows for each sale, each valuation model that was developed for each specific valuation group has passed the quality standard that we're required to meet for audit. And turning to page 31. So if you look at on the top graph, it says ratio versus adjusted sale price. You'll see it looks like a purple line. So that represents the level of assessment at 98%. So there are sales above, and there are sales below that line. So the process of mass appraisal is required to reflect typical market value. So not the highest, not the lowest, but the middle of the market. That's what we're required to do. And with medians, it's the median value. So if we used averages, they would have a huge impact on the overall result. But because it's the median, it plots the middle. So this page, turning to page 32. This is just to speak to the time adjustment process. So for all properties, whether they're single family, non-res, condos, multifamily, we look at sales from July the 1st, 22 to June the 30th of 2025. So when we're using those range of sales, they need to be changed, they need to be adjusted for the change in value over time. Obviously, if you look at that graph, if we use the sale in July 2022 as is, it wouldn't be appropriate, especially given at any time, but specifically now, because everyone knows, we all know here that the market changed significantly in 2024. So as 3-year sales are used in the development of value models in mass appraisal process, sales therefore are required to be adjusted for the respective change in value over time. This is done from the review of the sale of similar properties that sell during this time period. This is a critical part of the assessment process and is audited by the province. So this is key. We submit this to the province before we even begin analysis. And for this table here we're showing you on page 32 is specific to condos, not residential, not multifamily. This graph is specific to the condominiums. So just if Jody can skip to page 72 of my package. Sorry, I don't know what it would be for yours. Oh wow, very good. Thanks, Jody. So what this shows, I'm marking my page. What this shows are properties. These are sales in June 25. So for each of these properties, they're not all the same. There's an apartment condo. There's 2 apartment condos. There's the one on 19th Street. They're stacked. There are different. There's some in Eagle View. There's actually one in Sunvale Crescent, and there's one in Sunrise Terrace. Altogether, there are 9 sales. So the respective, if we go, let's just go to page 72 at the top. It says 83.7 at the top, right at the very top there. It's the assessment. The ratio is 83.7. That is the time adjusted assessment divided by the time adjusted selling price. So these are all the time adjusted selling prices sold in June 30th, 2025, with the overall assessment, the sales ratio for all of these 9 sales on page 74. at 99.4%. Right there, a bit further up. Thanks, Joey. So this shows that the sales of units, so for each model developed, for sales that occur in June of 2025 of each of those respective valuation models, the assessment to sales ratio is 99.4, which shows that the time adjustment is reliable because the time adjusted selling price is 99% of the sale price that occurred at that time. And these sales occur from, these are all in June 2025. So it's this evidence that the time adjustment is proven to be not only meeting quality standard by the province, but also reflective of sales that occur in June 2025. So an important note to make back on page 32 is that the time adjustment is determined before the determination of each specific valuation model. So yes, the time we use 300 and, how many is the 300 and, where are they? Sorry. Of the 324 sales, 381 sales were used to determine the time adjustment. You need a lot of sales to determine a time adjustment. We obviously, if in Sunvale Place, we couldn't determine a time adjustment because there's so few sales, right? So we don't. So that the time adjustment is done for all the condos. It's only time adjustment only. So the sales can be adjusted accordingly for the change value over time. The time adjustment has nothing to do with valuation of the models. So on page 33, it just shows the Town of High River. This is a report received from ASSET, from the provincial government. In the two red circles, it shows the residential assessment level has been met for all this is for all residential groups at 98.4%, and the non-res at 98%. So this is important. Unless we get this approval from the province, we can't send out assessment notices because it's not deemed to be consistent, fair, and equitable. So on page 34, upon review of Sunvale Place, as a complainant, and we had a good conversation with the complainant too, right? We've talked about this. Typically with condominiums, each condo is a model is developed for each condo, unless there's not sufficient sales. In Sunvale Place, just for information, there are six sales within a 3-year time period. So that's 26%. So usually the kind of rule of thumb, if you have 18% of the sales that sell within a group, that's pretty good. That's not bad. If you have a group of 23 and only one sale, that's not a good reflection of typical market. You need a group. So in talking to the property owners and reviewing the values within Sunvale Place, while there are 6 sales, it is a pretty homogeneous group, and there are some pictures we'll get to. So for Sunvale Place, Sunvale Crescent, and Sunrise Place, they're very similar. They're all on a concrete slab. They're all about the same size. All have a single car garage. Most of them are side by side, and some are Crescent, some are back to back, but that's a different group. So the decision was made upon review in light of the concerns of the value in Sunvale Place and Sunrise Place, which will come up later today. We developed a valuation model to contain all 3 of those condos, and we will do that moving forward, because then we have a larger group of sales. So on page 34, we have 23 sales of all of the condos. So there are 79 condos within Sunvale Place, Sunvale Crescent, and Sunrise Place. So 79, the same kind of condo, like on a slab, a single car garage. So it's a bigger group, so it affords more reliability and more consistency within that group. So we've combined all of those sales. So those bars at the bottom, you'll see 23 red bars. If we take the assessment divided by the time-adjusted selling price of each of those 23 sales, we get 96.8%. And the quality standard we're required to meet for audit is between 95 and 105%. So this meets quality standard. This resulted in the assessment that we came up with at 421,800. So that's where that final value, the proposed amended assessment, comes from the review of these. So these are all the sale assessments divided by a selling price in each of these cases to arrive at 96.8%. And this process of valuation modeling will be conducted from here on in for all of these condos. On page 35, it just for those 23 sales, it shows the dispersion of those sales, those red dots around that line there is 96%. So some are higher, some are lower. This proposed amended assessment reflects the middle of those sales. So page 36, now this shows all of the sales within Sunvale Place. There's six here. So this shows the respective, actually I'll back up a little bit here. So on the top, that's number 3, so it's $397 a square foot. I should have highlighted it on here, but it says building size 1,062, and then it says in brackets assessment / foot squared 397. So if you look down the page, so number 3 Sunvale Crescent is 397. Number 17 is 397 a square foot. 13 is 397 a square foot. And they're all 397 a square foot. They're all consistent. And the respective assessment to sales ratio, ranging from 85 to 103. So we turn to page 37. So if we take this new proposed amended assessment for Sunvale Place, take that assessment and divide it by the respective time-adjusted selling price, we'd have a model at 93.4%. Now, the problem, not the problem, but what became to pass was the original assessment for Sunvale Place was at a level of 98%. So, I'm talking to Paul, talking to the property owners in Sunvale Place. You know, we learn every year by talking to the property owners and what's an appropriate valuation process. So typically we don't combine condos because this group is so similar. It is appropriate to do that in this case. But if we were to use the sales in Sunvale Place only compared to the time-adjusted selling price, we'd have a model at 93.4. But it's not. This just shows the proposed amended assessment compared to the time-adjusted selling price. So it works if we combine all the models together at 96.8, but on its own it wouldn't be appropriate. So on page 38, this shows comparable sales. So 3 Sunvale Place is at 397. Let's call that a subject in this case. And then we've got a sale in 702 Sunvale Crescent. Its assessment, its time-adjusted selling price is $400,800. Its assessment is $412,200, and it's assessed at $397 a square foot. We've got 14 Sunrise Place. Its time-adjusted selling price is $464,200 compared to the assessment at $418,800. So the assessment's a little less than the time-adjusted selling price. And then 32 Sunrise Place, again, it's at $397, $398 a square foot. Its time-adjusted selling price is $442,600, and its assessment is $418,400. So this shows the consistency between these condos within each of these 3 communities, because we've got Sunvale Place at the top, Sunvale Crescent next, Sunrise Place the last 2. So all assessed the similar way, and they all meet the required quality standard. And then for comparable assessments, these are assessments in those 3 groups. We've got Sunvale Place at the top, Sunrise Place next. The third one is in Sunvale Crescent. So the top one's $397 a square foot. 42 Sunrise Place is $391 a square foot. The one at 802 Sunvale Crescent is a bit higher, it's just a bit smaller, so that tends to happen. When it gets smaller, their value per square foot can go up. 19 Sunvale Place at 397. That's in Sunvale Place. And then the bottom, next one, Sunrise Place at 394 square foot, and Sunvale Crescent at 407. They're all consistent then. The valuation model applied to all three of those communities results in an assessment that passes quality standard and is consistent throughout. On page 40, showing this, this was sent out with every assessment notice, shows the relative the changes in value year over year for each condominium community, and the yellow arrow shows that in Sunrise and in Sunvale, the overall assessment changed from 393. These are median values. So the median overall value of condos in Sunrise Place and Sunvale were changed from 393,750 to 423,50. So with the proposed amended assessments at 421,800, it just fits right in with that median value. So to conclude, Mr. Chairman, upon the review of the Sunvale Place Northeast condos during the 2026 inquiry period, it became evident there were historic data errors in the calculation of the 2025 assessment, specifically related to the size of the condo suite and the garage. With the assistance of many of the property owners, we were able to confirm the size of detached garages as being the same for all condos. Originally and typically, value condos for all condos are specific to each condo development. However, through discussions with property owners and upon a review of comparable sales and similar properties within Sunvale Place, Sunvale Crescent, and Sunrise Place, it appeared appropriate to develop a single value model for the similar side-by-side condo units in these locations collectively. The resulting value model meets the required provincial quality standard and is shown to be consistent and equitable within these three similar areas, and will be the standard approach to the assessment of these condo units in subsequent years. So it's the recommendation of the assessors that the amended assessments for the properties identified in this submission, as shown on page 21, be used for the 2025 assessment year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Complainant, you may now ask any relevant questions of the respondents. Please direct your questions through the presiding officer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Stuart, for giving that detailed explanation of everything that you've researched. I really don't have many questions. Just, can you identify a single sale of a Sunvale Place villa that supports an assessed value of $421,600 to $426,800 as of July 1st, 2025? I know that you've referred to the other two communities and how they are similar, but they're not identical. Some of those homes in Sunvale Crescent are double garage homes, or homes that don't even have a garage, and some do have a single garage. So they are different. But can you identify a single sale of Sunvale Place villa that supports the assessed values that you've now amended?
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the process we use for assessment is mass appraisal. So the more sales we have to represent the market, the more reliable that valuation is. So if we were to look at one sale, the issue within Sunvale Place is the fact that there's quite a number, there's sufficient sales. However, and I didn't include in my presentation, there are a number of the sales within Sunvale Place are estate sales, and number 10 is an estate sale. It sold within a very short period of time after it sold. They are an indicator of value, but they're not a good indicator of value for valuation. We'd have to have supporting documentation for estate sales, but notwithstanding that, the process we use is mass appraisal. So we have a level of assessment and we have sales above and below. So there isn't a specific sale within Sunvale Place. Because one sale does not equal the profit, the assessment. If it's a sale that sells for less than the assessment, it's not an indicator that the assessment is incorrect. It just shows if you were to throw all the sales on a map, is that sale higher or lower than the assessment? You need a group of sales to determine that. So the process of mass appraisal, we use the group of sales, in this case those 26 sales of each of those 3 communities, to arrive at a middle. The more sales we have, the more reliable the data we have, and it's reflective of all the sales within Sunvale, those 3 communities.
Thank you, Stuart. Mr. Chair, Stuart made the comment about these being estate sales. I went back, and as I mentioned previously, all of these owners know one another. The statement that there were multiple estate sales is inaccurate, but there's a question I do have. Do you have evidence that the sale was not an arm's length transaction when it was put up for sale? Was it publicly listed on the MLS? Was it exposed to the open market, and were multiple buyers able to bid on it?
Yeah, thank you for the question. The MLS is strictly billboard. The banks sell properties on the multiple listing service. There's foreclosure sales on there. We are required to review all the sales to make sure they're arm's length. So they can be arm's length if it's a foreclosure. Obviously, that doesn't mean because they're arm's length, in that in of themselves doesn't make it a good sale. For one of the sales, 10 Sunvale Place was after July 1, 2025, so we wouldn't use that. Again, they're interesting to use for perspective. So just to reiterate, we've used all the sales in those 3 similar communities to arrive at the assessment. All the sales we use are all verified as being arm's length sales and suitable for the use of mass appraisal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may make a comment, I know that in our meeting, Stuart, you indicated that number 19, Sunvale Place, was an estate sale. In actual fact, I went back and spoke to the owners, and that, in fact, wasn't an estate sale. It was a single lady who found a new boyfriend and subsequently sold her property so that she could move in with her boyfriend. So very different from what your assumption was based on it being sold very quickly. I recognise that the model that the town is using is designed to achieve statistical compliance across the municipality. But that does not necessarily prove that these individual properties are being assessed at market value. I appreciate that the town is required to use a mass appraisal model that satisfies all these provincial standards. But the board's role is to determine whether or not these individual assessments reflect market value. And in this case, the sales that have been made in Sunvale Place suggest that they do not. That's all I have to say. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm curious, you keep mentioning the time assessment, time-lapse valuation of that, but I don't see that in the legislation of how the assessment is to be calculated. The assessment indicates that MRAT states that it should be comparable to market, which we have lots of comparables here to ensure that that is in compliance. So I'm just not sure I understand the reason of the time lapse and what relevance that has here today.
Thank you for your question. That's a good question. The legislation says the valuation date is July 1, 2025. So if we're using sales in 2025, that doesn't represent a value as of July 1, 2025. So they do need to be adjusted to reflect valuation at that time. That's why the time adjustment process is important, because we can't use those older sales as is because they're not July 1, 2025. So it doesn't specifically say time adjustment, but because it mentions the time, and any appraisal would need to do that. That's why for single property appraisals that we're probably familiar with, the use sales as close to the time period as possible, so there's less adjustment. But because you use 3 years worth of sales, it requires review of that. We have to conduct that time adjustment process.
Thank you. I have a few questions myself here. Hold on 1 second. Can we flip to page 72 in regards to the assessment review? I think it's 155.
Okay.
No, it's from, scroll down for me, please. Yeah, it'll be 72 on this, so we're at 34, just increase. Appreciate it. Yep, if we can scroll up here. Just something I notice here. Mr. Dalrymple, when we discussed market ratio report, I'm just looking at these files, and I'm looking at the assessment pricing at 230 to 262 pricing. On the assessment, the adjusted assessment, we're now indicating a 397. So I just want to confirm with you, these improved comparables, are they not affiliated to this? We're strictly, just want to confirm that.
Yeah, this is just strictly time adjustment.
Okay.
These aren't comparable to the subject in any way.
Okay, appreciate that. Okay, that's all I have for right now.
If I may, one more question through the chair. What impact did the garage make to the overall assessment? By going back to reevaluate the area of the garage, you'd indicated obviously it's unhabitable space, so it's kind of assessed different square footage value. But what impact did that have when you did review that? Because the original areas were the same, but it looks like you were willing to make an adjustment to that because of the garage area. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it gets a bit complicated with this one because we adjusted the sizes. So the concern of the property owners was value. And then when they brought up the point that the sizes were incorrect, we're going to look at the value, collective value of these units, and if we were to propose an amended assessment, we have to get the sizes fixed first. So it did change the size, the square footage of the residence, or in this case the condo, because the garage is just a shell. It doesn't have doesn't carry a huge value, and the adjustment is applied to the condo. So these condos at $397 a square foot, if they're out 10 square feet, it's a substantial amount, right? So the most important detail to attend to first was to get the sizes correct. So originally these condos were assessed with a valuation standard at 98%. But upon review with the property owners and with Paul, we've had good conversations. Like I said, it's just seen appropriate to marry all of those condos together as a group. And then we can come up with a valuation model that's appropriate. It's consistent. We've got the sizes of the condo units and the garages all corrected now within Sunvale Place. And we've done the same in Sunrise Place as well. So that was important to fix the sizes. So the new model is at 96.8, right? It's quality standard. So the change in the assessment was the change in the size. It made the units all consistent. And we adjusted the valuation model as well, right? If, like I say, those sales we used in Sunvale Place, if we'd use that model now, do a value model for that specific condo, it would be less than 95. So you wouldn't pass quality standard. So by wrapping it together with the 3 other communities, it's quality standard and they're all consistent.
Thank you. I will now invite the complainant to speak to the rebuttal disclosure presented. You may proceed when you're ready.
The question that is before the board this morning really is not whether or not a model was followed. The question is really whether or not a resulting assessment represents market value. The model is a tool, not evidence of market value itself. And the model, if the model produces a value inconsistent with actual market transactions for this specific property type, then the assessment's wrong. The legislation requires actual market value, not simply compliance with a modeling range. And that's our argument. The town has demonstrated that its model produced this number, but it has not demonstrated that this number reflects what buyers actually pay for these specific class of properties. And that's really all I have to say, Chair.
Thank you. Respondent, you may now ask any relevant questions of the complainant. Please direct your question to the presiding officer.
No further questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now ask if any members of the board have any final questions for either party. So I do have one last question here to Mr. Dalrymple. Under the mass appraisal, do you believe that the valuation comes to a fair and equitable market value of the assessed properties in question?
Thank you for your question, Mr. Chairman. We're required by legislation to value properties using mass appraisal. So mass appraisal, if an actual value were the actual sale of a property, the mass appraisal is to review the sales of all similar properties, develop appropriate valuation models, and apply them to similar properties so they're all valued consistently. So that's the process of assessment for property tax purposes. Our mandate by provincial standard is market value. So all the sales are reviewed to make sure they're arm's length sales, and all those sales are used to develop the value model. So I do believe the assessments under mass appraisal process, which has been statistically tested to be compliant with the province, that's our responsibility. We reviewed these assessments to property owners. We've been open and transparent about that, so has the complainant and all the property owners. There's a difference in opinion of the market. We have to use all the sales. We have to develop value models of past quality standard. That's our responsibility to the province and our responsibility to each of respective property owners. So we believe we've met that standard. We've made adjustments accordingly to try to be as understanding of the concerns of the property owners to make an appropriate adjustment for the board here today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. To the complainant, a similar question, if you could please respond.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I mentioned, we believe that the value should be much lower than what the town has put together. I'm not sure how the time assessment factor has played a part in this, but when I ran through the numbers on using AI modeling, it said that the model shouldn't be above 406, even if it was to be anywhere near what they're saying. So I don't believe that the town has provided a fair assessment as of now, and the sales that have occurred just last year and since that time support my argument that none of those homes are being sold for anywhere near 421,000. So that's kind of where we sit in our position.
Thank you. We'll now be proceeding to closing submissions. I will now invite the complainant to provide, kind of already did the closing remark first with the respondent. If there's anything else you would like to add, we can, but I kind of just already did that. No?
No, sir.
The respondent, anything last minute you'd like to add?
No further questions or comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. The board will deliberate following the conclusion of the hearing and will issue a written decision in accordance to the legislated timelines. Generally, parties can expect the board decision within 30 days of the hearing. After the decision is finalized, the clerk has up to 7 additional days to distribute the final written decision to the parties. Thank you. This concludes the Local Assessment Review Board hearing for July 15, 2026. The hearing is adjourned at the time of 10:20 a.m.